Have you ever wondered what it truly feels like to be the smartest person in a room where everyone else thinks magic is just glitter and fancy words? You trudge along the misty streets of Muggle London, your breath fogging up like tiny ghosts, until a nondescript brick wall flickers into view with a barely audible pop of enchanted iron. It's 1991, and the world is quietly buzzing with normalcy. But here, you're about to enter a place where nothing is ever normal, and you probably won't survive this without learning a few things the hard way. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. You push through the small door, and the scent of old parchment, candle wax, and faintly singed hairs fills your senses, immediately telling you that Hogwarts isn't just a school. It's a living, breathing labyrinth of possibility. You can feel the cobblestones humming beneath your feet, almost as if the castle itself is judging you for daring to wander too fast. The first whispers of your curiosity flicker like tiny flames behind your eyes. You notice the tiniest details, the uneven knotholes in the wood, the way the snow clings stubbornly to the iron bars outside, as if defying gravity itself. Hermione Granger. That's the name everyone's been whispering, though no one has yet seen her wield her full potential. She's the kind of girl who asks questions that make teachers pause mid-breath, and older students squirm in their seats, the type who might turn an average homework assignment into a revelation about the very fabric of magic. Historians often note that even in the early 90s, children's education in England was highly regimented and structured, but Hermione doesn't abide by the ordinary. She bends the system with polite persistence. You catch a faint glimmer of the magical ceiling in the Great Hall, stars twinkling so realistically it could start an argument about whether the sun truly sets in Hogwarts' enchanted night sky, a debate that scholars have quietly been having for decades. And then there's the quirk. She memorizes entire books, not because she has to, but because she genuinely wants to. A habit some psychologists link to unusual cognitive wiring that even today would spark lively academic papers. You probably don't realize yet, but this is only the beginning. Your journey alongside her will stretch from classrooms to dungeons, from whispered library secrets to heart-pounding duels where every choice matters. You tiptoe along, hearing the faint scrape of quills on parchment from somewhere nearby, and you feel the subtle tug of destiny, whispering, "Pay attention." You notice the flicker of candlelight against a tapestry depicting a wizard whose nose seems slightly too long. Little quirks like this populate every corridor, a reminder that magic often has a sense of humor. Your own heart beats a little faster as you step closer to what will become the defining chapters of your young witch's life. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The moment you step onto the Hogwarts Express, the air changes, like the very walls of the train have absorbed 1,000 whispered secrets and forgotten spells, all waiting for someone clever enough to notice. You trudge along the narrow corridor, your hand brushing against polished wood, the scent of coal and hot chocolate mingling in an oddly comforting way, and realize that this isn't just a scenic ride. It's a threshold into a world where surprises lurk behind every compartment door. You slide open one, and there she is, Hermione Granger, a whirlwind of bushy hair and fervent energy, perched on the edge of a seat with a pile of books balanced precariously on her lap, and a quill tucked behind her ear, like a tiny, impatient sentinel. You notice, almost immediately, how her gaze absorbs the room, cataloging each detail as though the walls themselves have answers she intends to extract. Outside, the countryside rushes past in streaks of green and brown, but inside, time seems to stretch, thick with possibility and the faint, ever-present hum of magic that even muggles could feel if they were lucky, or unlucky enough. She leans over, whispering the kind of questions that would make most first-years' heads spin. About enchantments, ancient runes, and the subtle differences between charms that are technically safe versus probably catastrophic if miscast. It's here that you start to sense her relentless curiosity. Even as a fellow observer, you can feel your own neurons firing faster just to keep up. Historians of education might note that children's self-directed learning can dramatically outpace formal instruction, a fact Hermione embodies to a degree that borders on legendary, and fringe researchers speculate that some prodigies may process information in a slightly non-linear, almost intuitive pattern, which explains why she remembers every spellbook detail with surgical precision. The rhythmic click-clack of the train wheels beneath you provides a soothing background cadence, occasionally punctuated by the hiss of steam as the locomotive negotiates a sharp bend or disappears into a foggy tunnel, almost like the train itself is testing your courage to keep looking ahead. You catch the faint aroma of treacle tart wafting from somewhere, and your stomach does that twitchy thing, reminding you that even in worlds of magic, bodily needs remain stubbornly persistent. Conversations ripple around you, first years nervously discussing their houses, older students exchanging subtle hints about secret passages, and somewhere in the distance, the soft clatter of dice in a game of wizard chess. But your focus keeps snapping back to her, because Hermione isn't just observing, she's decoding, predicting, and quietly challenging the very rules you assumed governed this magical train ride. You almost bump into a trolley brimming with sweets, a peculiar blend of chocolate frogs, sugar quills, and Bertie Bott's every flavor beans. Some flavors so bizarre they've sparked entire debates among magical historians about their origins and the whimsical intentions of wizarding confectioners. By the time the train pulls into Hogsmeade Station, your pulse has picked up, your mind is buzzing, and you realize that Hogwarts is not just a place of learning, it's a living puzzle, and Hermione Granger is the key piece that will unlock doors you never even knew existed, all while keeping you slightly terrified and endlessly intrigued. The Sorting Hat sits heavy and warm on your head, and almost immediately, its ancient voice swirls inside your mind, probing, teasing, measuring every ambition, fear, and spark of curiosity you've ever had. You feel it tugging gently at memories you didn't realize were relevant, the echoes of family dinners, early successes with reading, and tiny moments of moral defiance, all flashing past like enchanted portraits. Hogwarts' oldest artifact isn't just a hat, it's an assessor of soul. And right now, it's fascinated by the girl who's both clever and stubborn, cautious yet daring, who wants to fit in, but will never settle for mediocrity. You have talent, it muses, its voice tickling the back of your skull like a polite breeze. But I see your loyalty, your curiosity, and a streak that could be dangerous if not directed wisely. You start to squirm, not out of fear, but because even the Sorting Hat can be unsettlingly accurate in naming your flaws before you've admitted them to yourself. It debates where to place you, considering Ravenclaw for your intellect, Gryffindor for your courage, perhaps even Slytherin if your cunning edges a little sharper than most. You almost laugh at the idea, because deep down, you know she doesn't need an ancient talking hat to measure her potential. But the suspense is delicious, like watching a potion bubble just before it changes color. Magical historians note that the Sorting Hat tradition dates back to the school's founding in the 10th century, a curious blend of wizarding ritual and educational psychology, and fringe theorists have argued that the hat might have an actual sentience beyond enchantment, sparking debates that even contemporary scholars cannot resolve. Meanwhile, the room waits in hushed anticipation, the smell of polished wood and waxed floors filling your lungs as tiny sparks from candles dance in a rhythm that seems almost responsive to your pulse. The hat probes deeper, fears of failure, impatience with ignorance, a compulsive drive to solve every puzzle and memorize every fact. You can almost hear it chuckling internally at her compulsive need to be prepared for everything, a trait both admirable and slightly exhausting. When it finally speaks, the decision lands softly yet firmly. Gryffindor. A cheer erupts, and you feel her sitting taller, a small, triumphant grin tugging at her lips as if she's just won a duel of wits with centuries of magical tradition. You glance around and notice the way other students' eyes linger on her, some with envy, some with admiration. And you realize that this isn't just placement in a house. It's a foreshadowing of countless challenges, triumphs, and adventures that will test courage, intellect, and heart in ways you can't yet imagine. The sorting hat is lifted, and you hear one last teasing whisper in your mind. Remember, clever one, the choice is always yours, until it isn't. You step forward, finally seated among new friends, the excitement and anxiety bubbling together in a heady mix, knowing that Hogwarts is now officially hers to explore, question, and quietly, very quietly, master. Friendship arrives in the most unexpected ways, like a soft nudge rather than a grand announcement, and suddenly you're tripping over books, spells, and laughter all at once. You notice Ron Weasley first, with his gangly arms and slightly crooked teeth, fumbling through the Great Hall as if gravity itself doesn't quite trust him. And then Harry, quiet but alert, eyes scanning the room like a hawk trained in the art of noticing trouble before it starts. Hermione, naturally, is already cataloging them. Mental notes about personality, courage level, and potential usefulness in dueling practice. And you can't help but marvel at how she makes a casual friendship feel like a carefully executed strategy, even as genuine warmth radiates from her in little, surprising bursts. They cluster near the Gryffindor table, trading awkward jokes and confessions, the kind that only first-year students dare to whisper over sticky treacle tarts. And somehow, amidst the chaos, a bond begins that feels simultaneously fragile and unbreakable. You watch as Hermione leans over to correct a mispronounced incantation, her voice soft but unwavering, and you realize that teaching isn't just about knowledge. It's a way to forge connections, wield influence, and quietly guide others through the labyrinth of their own uncertainty. Historians often note that peer relationships in adolescent education have profound effects on long-term achievement. Yet few mention how magical environments amplify this phenomenon, creating bonds that can determine life or death in subtle ways. There's also the quirky fact that some students develop odd habits from constant exposure to magic, like speaking to inanimate objects as if they might answer back, a detail that both delights and unnerves visiting researchers. The castle itself seems to respond. Staircases shift slightly, paintings murmur behind your back, and a stray owl hoots somewhere overhead, punctuating the rhythm of the evening with gentle reminders that Hogwarts is never truly still. You notice that even mundane activities, a game of wizard chess, a shared potion assignment, a whispered debate about house points, take on a kind of cinematic tension, each move carrying weight, each glance charged with unspoken strategy. Light jokes arise naturally. Ron spills pumpkin juice on his robes, earning a teasing grin from Hermione, while a nearby first-year drops a quill into a cauldron, prompting a tiny, harmless explosion of glittery smoke. In the midst of this, you feel the undercurrent of something larger, a sense that the friendships you're witnessing aren't merely social constructs, but lifelines, threaded through the narrative of your magical education, capable of shaping your choices, your courage, and even your morality. Even as the candles flicker and the Great Hall quiets into a hum of study and whispered plans, the bonds formed in these first awkward hours resonate deeply, echoing in future duels, midnight library missions, and the moral quandaries that will inevitably test loyalty, wisdom, and bravery. You realize, with a mix of awe and amusement, that Hermione's friendships aren't just companions. They're instruments in a larger symphony of intelligence, courage, and quiet rebellion, playing notes that only you can begin to understand. The library at Hogwarts isn't just a room full of books, it's a labyrinth where every shelf, every dusty tome, and every flickering candle seems to whisper secrets only the cleverest can hear. You follow Hermione as she navigates the towering stacks, her fingers brushing the spines with a reverence that borders on ritualistic, eyes scanning titles with the precision of a seasoned librarian, and you can't help but be impressed by how effortlessly she maps the sprawling maze in her mind. Every corner seems alive. A loose page flutters like a small bird. A faint scent of ink and candle wax mingles with something strangely metallic, and somewhere, a single quill bounces gently on a table as if obeying an invisible conductor. She dives into books about obscure spells, forgotten histories, and creatures that teeter on the edge between legend and reality, murmuring facts that most professors would have to double-check in disbelief. You notice her pause at an ancient volume, tracing runes with her fingertip, her brow furrowed in concentration that makes you realize just how deeply she internalizes knowledge, converting it into instinct before the words even leave the page. Historians point out that libraries in medieval and early modern times functioned as both repositories of knowledge and gateways to social status, and Hogwarts, though magical, mirrors this dynamic. Knowledge here is power, but only if you have the curiosity, persistence, and courage to pursue it. A quirky fringe tidbit emerges as she flips through a worn manuscript. Some witches and wizards once reportedly enchanted entire libraries to play subtle tricks on inattentive readers, like rearranging letters or making the ink slightly vanish, a detail that sparks playful debates among scholars about the line between practical magic and mischievous prank. Lighthearted humor sneaks in. She mutters under her breath about a book that apparently bites if opened wrong, while you duck reflexively, half expecting to feel teeth on your fingertips. The air carries a quiet tension, a blend of anticipation and the faint rustle of pages, as if the library itself waits for discoveries to be made, secrets to be unearthed, and riddles to be solved. You trudge deeper into the stacks, feeling the weight of potential knowledge pressing pleasantly against your shoulders, sensing that every spell, potion, or historical insight she uncovers could shift outcomes in ways that will ripple through the castle and beyond. And yet, amidst all this, there's the interactive magic of the story itself. You can't help but wonder how far this tale has traveled. Who else might be curled up in their own nook somewhere, learning, imagining, and sharing this journey? The candlelight flickers across her determined expression, and you realize that this isn't just study. It's an act of creation, preparation, and subtle rebellion against the idea that anyone could ever limit the scope of her intellect. I'm really curious. From which part of the world are you watching this video? Write your country in the comments. Let's see how far this little story has traveled. You breathe in the scent of old parchment and promise yourself silently to pay attention, to follow closely. Because in this maze of knowledge, even a small misstep could mean missing the key to an enchanted mystery, a hidden spell, or an insight that might someday save lives, or at least keep you one step ahead of magical mischief. The first real challenge doesn't arrive with fanfare. It sneaks up like a whisper in the corridors, a puzzle wrapped in enchanted vines, and the faint smell of singed parchment that tingles your nose just enough to keep you alert. You follow Hermione as she approaches a locked classroom door, the key missing, the handle warm as if it has recently felt the touch of a determined hand, and the air humming faintly with latent magic that seems almost impatient for you to make a move. Inside, an obstacle awaits, a shifting maze of enchanted tiles, each step triggering subtle charms, illusions, and minor enchantments that test your wits more than your courage. Hermione pauses, lips pursed, calculating trajectories, memorizing patterns, and murmuring counterspells as if the room itself had assigned her a riddle only she could solve. You notice her brow furrow slightly when a floor tile tries to mimic a snake's hiss, and the faint shimmer of an invisible wall appears before your eyes, a reminder that in magic, perception often matters as much as reality. Historians note that in medieval times, scholars and students often faced riddles and intellectual challenges as part of elite training, and Hogwarts' curriculum mirrors this philosophy with magical complexity, an environment where cleverness, memory, and quick thinking are as crucial as spell work. A quirky fringe fact surfaces. Some charms used in these exercises were rumored to adjust difficulty based on the student's confidence level, a concept still debated among magical theorists who argue whether the castle itself might possess semi-sentient intelligence. You step carefully, noting the way Hermione's wand flicks, sending a soft burst of sparks to mark a safe path, and you marvel at her instinctive balance of logic and intuition, two qualities that seem impossible to separate in her mind. Light humor emerges when a floating textbook swoops too close to your head, prompting Hermione to flick it gently back into place with a perfectly measured incantation, whispering, "Honestly, it's not that aggressive. Usually." Every turn of the maze reveals more than just physical challenges. It forces you to consider ethics, strategy, and the subtle art of knowing which risks are worth taking. You sense that every tiny miscalculation could have cascading effects, not just in this room, but potentially on house points, professor impressions, or even future adventures in the castle. By the time you emerge, hearts racing and lungs tingling from the subtle exertion of concentration, you realize the lesson isn't just about spellcasting, it's about observation, patience, and trusting your instincts even when the rules seem to bend around you. Hermione glances at you, a half smile tugging at her lips, and you understand that this was never merely a test of magic. It was a carefully disguised initiation into the mindset that will carry her through every challenge to come, where courage, intellect, and adaptability are the truest measures of survival. The mysteries of the past begin to seep into the present, like mist curling through a moonlit corridor, and you realize that Hogwarts isn't just a school, it's a living archive of secrets, legends, and whispers from centuries gone by. You follow Hermione as she slips into a restricted section of the library, the air thick with the scent of dust, old leather, and faint traces of forgotten enchantments, her eyes scanning titles that make your own pulse quicken. Ancient magic lingers here, books that hum faintly under your fingertips, scrolls with letters that shift when you aren't looking, and portraits whose eyes seem to hold grudges against anyone who dares disturb them. She mutters under her breath, translating archaic Latin incantations and cross-referencing historical events with the meticulousness of a scholar who cannot tolerate errors, and you feel the intensity of her mind like a magnetic pull, drawing you into the investigation. Historians acknowledge that magical institutions often preserve layers of history that blend fact and folklore, creating a landscape where discerning truth becomes a challenge, an idea still debated in academic circles about the line between myth and historical record. A quirky detail arises as she opens a book that claims certain wand movements were originally inspired by bird flight patterns, an eccentric theory that, despite skepticism, seems to hold subtle truths, suggesting that even magic evolves in unpredictable ways. You notice that the castle itself seems to respond, tapestries twitching slightly, faint lights flickering as if eager to reveal long-hidden knowledge, while the echo of distant footsteps creates an almost cinematic tension that reminds you of whispered warnings from centuries past. Light humor surfaces when a floating quill hovers expectantly over an ink pot, dripping ink onto a margin with a comedic precision that seems to mock your careful notes. The investigation forces you to consider ethics, intention, and the often ambiguous line between right and wrong in the pursuit of knowledge. Hermione juggles these considerations effortlessly, demonstrating not just intellect, but a moral compass that refuses shortcuts. You realize that each discovery, no matter how small, is a thread weaving together a tapestry of understanding that stretches across generations, connecting the living with the echoes of those who once walked these halls. By the time you leave the dimly lit stacks, your head is buzzing with names, dates, and cryptic spells, and you sense that the past isn't just a backdrop, it's an active participant, shaping present decisions and future outcomes. A lesson Hermione embodies as she quietly translates history into wisdom, insight, and the occasional mischievous smirk that promises subtly that the adventure is far from over. Confrontation arrives without warning, like a sudden chill slipping down the back of your neck, and you realize that Hogwarts tests more than knowledge. It tests courage, quick thinking, and the resilience of friendships forged in flickering candlelight. You follow Hermione into the dimly lit corridor near the third-floor corridor, the air thick with tension, the shadows dancing unnaturally against stone walls, and sense that every step could trigger a trap, a challenge, or an unexpected duel. Faces appear from unexpected places, classmates you thought were harmless, enchanted suits of armor shifting slightly, and even portraits whose eyes gleam with secrets they are eager to reveal or conceal. And you understand immediately that survival here relies as much on instinct and perception as on spell work. Hermione steps forward with quiet confidence, wand poised, scanning for danger while formulating plans in milliseconds, and you notice her subtle use of body language to communicate strategy to those around her, a silent choreography that turns panic into purpose. Historians of medieval dueling note that strategy, timing, and awareness were often more decisive than brute strength, a principle Hogwarts challenges seem to mirror in every magical obstacle. And contemporary magical theorists debate whether such trials are designed purely for skill building or also to test moral character under stress. A quirky, almost whimsical detail emerges when a floating book attempts a surprise attack, only to be deftly deflected into a harmless pile of sparkles, eliciting a barely suppressed grin from Hermione that underscores her combination of wit and poise. The rhythmic click of your footsteps echoes through the hallways, mixing with the low hum of latent enchantments, while faint scents of burning candle wax and parchment smoke create a sensory backdrop that feels almost cinematic in its intensity. Light humor appears when a rogue enchanted teapot scuttles past your feet, leaving behind a trail of steaming water that prompts a startled jump and a whispered, "Honestly, Hogwarts, really?" Each twist and turn brings a series of ethical decisions. Do you help a classmate at the risk of losing points? Focus on neutralizing the magical hazard, or attempt the cleverest solution that balances both outcomes? Hermione demonstrates the delicate art of choosing wisely, often risking her own comfort for others, and you realize that bravery here is as much about compassion and foresight as it is about courage under fire. By the time the confrontation ends, hearts are racing, minds buzzing, and the lessons linger long after the immediate danger fades. That true courage is nuanced, strategy is inseparable from morality, and the bonds forged in these crises are often the strongest, guiding future choices in ways you are only beginning to understand. The castle settles around you with a low hum, shadows relaxing, but you know that the echoes of this encounter will resonate in corridors, classrooms, and hearts for years to come. Secrets are revealed in whispers, flickering candlelight, and the quiet rustle of parchment, and you feel the weight of knowledge settling around you like a cloak woven from centuries of magical experience. You follow Hermione into a hidden nook behind a tapestry, where a small, dust-laden chest waits, its lock ancient and enchanted, containing letters, diagrams, and cryptic notes that expose truths even some professors hesitate to discuss openly. Each discovery nudges open a door to the past, long-forgotten spells, accounts of daring witches and wizards, and moral dilemmas that force you to question whether knowledge alone is enough, or whether understanding intention, consequence, and timing are equally crucial. Hermione examines each artifact with meticulous care, whispering observations that reveal not only her intellect, but her deep empathy, a reminder that mastery of magic is inseparable from awareness of its human effects. Historians highlight that arcane knowledge was often transmitted through restricted channels, accessible only to those who demonstrated exceptional responsibility, and fringe magical theorists argue that some Hogwarts secrets may predate even recorded wizarding history, a claim still debated among scholars. Quirky moments arise when a self-writing quill scrawls notes faster than you can read, spelling out charmingly pedantic admonitions about proper magical etiquette, causing Hermione to chuckle softly as she rolls her eyes at the quill's officiousness. You notice the interplay of light and shadow around you, the flicker of candle flames against stone walls, the gentle sway of enchanted objects, and the soft hum of the castle as if approving or warning, a subtle reminder that every choice here has consequences both seen and unseen. Light humor sneaks in when a miniature enchanted globe spins rapidly and nearly knocks over a stack of parchment, prompting Hermione to quip, if only they graded magical precision like this. The lessons extend beyond spell work. Patience, observation, ethical decision-making, and the courage to act on knowledge even when outcomes are uncertain, all converge in this quiet chamber of revelation. You sense that the triumphs of discovery are inseparable from mistakes and missteps, that every solution carries with it a thread of responsibility that must be acknowledged, and that the deeper you delve, the more you realize how intertwined magic, morality, and memory are. By the time you step back into the main corridors, the air feels lighter, your mind brimming with insight, and you understand that secrets, once uncovered, don't just inform, they transform, shaping the trajectory of friendships, future challenges, and the very nature of what it means to wield magic wisely. Hermione's quiet confidence becomes almost palpable, a force that reassures you even as it hints at the subtle complexities, the ethical quandaries, and the enduring mysteries that will continue to define her journey through Hogwarts. You finally settle into a reflective pace, tracing the echoes of everything that has transpired, the lessons learned, the friendships forged, the challenges faced, and the subtle victories that, though quiet, ripple across Hogwarts like soft waves across a moonlit lake. Hermione Granger stands at the center of it all, not with grandiose fanfare, but with that trademark quiet confidence and fierce intellect that has guided every step she's taken, every decision she's made, and every friend she's helped shape into someone braver, smarter, and more aware of the world's infinite possibilities. You notice the way she pauses in a corridor, fingers brushing lightly against a tapestry, depicting long-forgotten headmasters, eyes reflecting curiosity and reverence simultaneously, as if silently acknowledging that the legacy of Hogwarts is a tapestry woven from countless minds, some celebrated, some anonymous, all intertwined. Historians note that extraordinary individuals often leave subtle imprints on their communities, shaping culture and knowledge in ways that may go unnoticed for decades. And Hogwarts seems to operate on this principle at a magical level. A fringe notion floats through your mind. Some argue that the castle itself recognizes and adapts to the intelligence and intent of its inhabitants, almost as if Hermione's presence subtly calibrates the very magic around her, an idea still vigorously debated in scholarly circles. Light humor flickers into the scene when an errant enchanted feather floats past, and Hermione swats it away with the kind of exasperated patience only she can muster, reminding you that even the most extraordinary minds contend with minor annoyances. You reflect on the quiet victories, clever solutions to enchanted puzzles, the careful navigation of moral dilemmas, and the persistent drive to learn, understand, and act with intention, all of which paint the portrait of a heroine whose impact extends far beyond immediate recognition. The sensory environment soothes as well. Soft candlelight glimmers against stone walls, a distant owl hoots somewhere in a courtyard, and the faint hum of magic seems to vibrate in tandem with your own steadying heartbeat. You understand, finally, that Hermione's legacy isn't defined solely by her intellect or her courage, but by her consistency, empathy, and the small, often overlooked choices that cumulatively create profound change. Every corridor, library nook, and classroom now feels alive with the echoes of her presence, a gentle reminder that brilliance, kindness, and perseverance quietly shape not only the present, but the future of everyone lucky enough to witness it. As you step back into the Great Hall, the faint aroma of parchment and candle wax lingers. The stars above the enchanted ceiling twinkle as if winking knowingly, and you realize that one young witch's journey has become inseparable from the heartbeat of the castle itself. Hogwarts, with all its secrets, challenges, and enduring magic, has been quietly transformed, and you carry the sense that every choice, every insight, and every friendship she nurtures will continue to ripple through time in subtle, remarkable ways. The castle settles into an almost imperceptible calm, the echoes of footsteps fading into the distant, comforting hum of night. You breathe slowly, letting the soft glow of candlelight wash over your senses, noticing the gentle sway of tapestries and the delicate flicker of shadows that seem to dance in harmony with your exhalations. The faint scent of old parchment, melted wax, and lingering enchantments fills the air like a gentle memory, each note grounding you in this world that feels both fantastical and remarkably tangible. You trace your fingers along the polished wood of a table, imagining the invisible threads of knowledge and bravery woven through every stone, every corridor, and every corner of Hogwarts, feeling a sense of quiet awe at the intricate tapestry Hermione has been silently crafting with each choice she has made. The soft rustle of leaves outside and the occasional distant hoot of an owl punctuate the night, creating a lullaby unique to this magical place, one that reminds you that even in extraordinary worlds, calm and patience exist, waiting to be discovered. You let your mind drift along the gentle rhythms of magic and memory, picturing small sparks of light floating in the air, each representing a thought, a discovery, or a subtle triumph achieved through courage and intellect. The castle exhales slowly, as if inviting you to release your own tension, to sink into comfort, and to reflect on how a single determined mind can ripple outward, shaping the lives of others quietly but profoundly. You feel yourself relaxing, eyelids heavy, and the last image lingering is Hermione, standing quietly in a candlelit corridor, a figure of curiosity, kindness, and unwavering determination, a gentle guide through the night's story. Let your breath synchronize with the slow, rhythmic pulse of this magical world, softening, deepening, until the hum of Hogwarts itself lulls you into a peaceful drift, leaving the mind open for dreams that sparkle with possibility and gentle wonder.